The scandals cause huge devastation for thousands of people. It's widely considered to be one of the biggest miscarriages of justice in the NHS's history. It's estimated one person who is infected is dying in the UK every 4 days. Joining us now is the former Lib Dem President, Baroness Brinton, who's tabled the amendment herself, and Justine Gordon-Smith, whose father died from infected blood. Thank you both so much. Justine, we'll just start with you. Tell us what happened to your family and to your father.
Our dad was a haemophiliac and he went in for routine medical treatment, and we don't know when he became infected because his medical records have been entirely cleared of evidence. So we can't tell you, but we can tell you that his life started to spiral out of control. His marriage broke up with my mum. He then got remarried. He then was used in a clinical trial. We subsequently found out without his consent. He then became seriously ill. His marriage broke up. He lost everything. He lived in penury and misery for years. And then he got cancer, and we had to take care of him and watch him suffer the most inhumane death that is hard for me to talk about, you know.
Justine, thank you first and foremost for coming on, because this is an emotive story. And Baroness Brinton, well, Justine tries to just relax a little bit. Silly question. You only have to listen to somebody like Justine to understand why you got involved. 30,000 people infected in contaminated blood in the 70s and 80s. And we've talked in the last few weeks and months about the Horizon Post Office scandal. This must be the biggest scandal the NHS has ever had to deal with. What do you see happening?
It's absolutely dreadful, and it's been going on right from the start. I knew some of the boys at a boarding school for disabled children, and it included a number of haemophiliacs. Most of those boys I met in 1974-75 are now dead. Because they were given, without their knowledge or their parents' knowledge, infected blood, and it's dreadful. So my amendment picks up one of the recommendations of the public inquiry. Sir Brian Langstaff unusually issued an interim report last year saying he wanted this compensation for those who were yet unrecognised as having infected blood and their families, the interim compensation that some other families have already been promised. He asked for that to be done by December, and the government has not done it, which is why I have laid my amendment.
So if this amendment goes and gets approval, what impact is that going to have on family members of people who lost loved ones?
Well, it starts to right the wrongs that happened, because the deaths, the illnesses are dreadful. But all the victims and their families were re-victimised by the way the NHS and governments of all colours over the years repeatedly lied to them and hid from them what was going on. It really is the most serious scandal we have had for many years.
Baroness, just very quickly, and I'll come back to Justine. You just said something there that really makes... I say every day that people's trust in our politicians is going. You said that all governments of all different persuasions have lied for a number of years. Are we looking at situations like the Post Office where politicians think they can lie to the electorate and get away with it?
I suspect that this came from the NHS and officials because they were just not prepared to disclose. And then they fed back in the same way with Post Office Horizon to officials inside government, and then ministers were told that there was nothing to see, move on here. But that doesn't stop the responsibility either of the NHS, which, by the way, lied from the mid-70s, so this is much older than the Horizon Post Office scheme, and even when facts were absolutely incontrovertible, said it was not the responsibility of government or the NHS. That has to change, and if the government says that it can speed up the Post Office Horizon scheme, they should, I was going to say something rather naughty there, they should certainly speed up this scheme as well.
A baroness swearing, goodness me. Justin, I understand your passion. Justin, some people will look at this and go, OK, compensation, long overdue. It's been, somebody needs to take accountability, but it's not about the money for you, is it?
I think it's about both, because the devastation that happened to our dad's life.
Yeah.
I mean, he died without justice. They finally set up the support schemes for victims, and that just came in as he was dying. He was a dad that wanted to protect and take care of his family, and instead of being able to do that, we had to protect and take care of him. I mean, I remember, you know, as a young woman, my dad becoming homeless. I had to, you know, go up and try and get him a house. I remember when Princess Diana died, because I was doing up my dad's house, you know, and the 4 o'clock in the morning, because I had to get back to go to work, you know, that it's affected all of our lives. And I mean, when and people talk about it being a scandal of the 70s and 80s, it's never stopped being a scandal. There's no funding for palliative care. There's no support. I mean, if you sit in forums with infected victims, they just constantly reiterate the difficulty they have in getting proper treatment, you know? And it's the families that have been left to clean up their mess, not NHS officials. I mean, you know, I went from being, you know, an academic with a scholarship to a Russell Group university. I've won awards for my work as a filmmaker. You know, I've got a first-class honours degree, and instead I had to give up my career and take care of my dad because there was no one to take care of him. And I had to watch, my sisters and I had to watch our dad suffer the most cruel and inhumane death imaginable because he had untreated and diagnosed hepatic encephalopathy.
What is so tragic, Justine, is you are one of hundreds who've gone through something so traumatic.
Yes.
I dare say it for time. This is all we've
Sorry.
got time for, but thank you so much, both of you. Baroness Brinton, Justine Gordon-Smith, thank you.